Hello and welcome to Level Up and Friends, the show where those of us from the comic book and game store level up entertainment invite friends on each week to discuss a topic we care about. This week we're continuing our month-long Halloween spooktacular by looking at the annual Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episodes. I'm your host Scott, not so fine, and joining me this week is Kayla Wail-itsch.
Hi everybody. As Scott said, I'm Kayla Wail-itsch. It's hard to say. It's actually Wail-itsch. We're trying to be silly.
Yeah.
So you can find my work on Instagram at Star Savior Bunny or at This Is Radio Flash. I'm excited to speak with you all about a topic that is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. So to start us off, I think it's fair to say Simpsons are probably our favorite TV show of all time.
I think so. I think so, man. I think it's finally, as I got older, it's kind of gotten up there. I think it's number one.
Yeah, it's. I mean, of a certain age, I definitely grew up with it. You're a little bit younger than me, so you probably don't even remember a world that didn't have The Simpsons.
So true. Yeah, that's weird to think about.
But not counting the Tracy Ullman shorts, it's the same age as my brother, which is crazy, and that's still going. But yeah, so it was a big part of my life growing up, and the Treehouse of Horror episodes always stuck out in particular. So the first couple, the first one was in I think 1990. I was looking this up earlier, so I was like 4 going on 5 when the first one came out, and Marge comes out and mentions how scary the episode is, and like the first couple of years they did it, they legitimately scared me. Even though it's a silly comedy cartoon for adults, and I was 5, so I shouldn't have been watching it anyway. But because of that, they always stuck out like in my brain, like even more so than the average episode, even though the average episode was still really good.
Yeah.
Back then. But do you remember when you first started watching The Simpsons and maybe the Treehouse of Horror episode specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember. I can't remember a time where we didn't stop every Sunday night at 8:00 to watch. We all sit down and watch The Simpsons together. That was kind of like, I remember always feeling like a little depressed that it was Sunday night and the weekend was over, but like so excited that, it's not officially over until we have our like weekly Simpsons watching session. But yeah, like you were saying, like I was looking at the dates today too, and I was like, oh my God, wait, how did I even watch some of these? Because I wasn't even conceived. Yeah. Or no, I wasn't even born. I was conceived. I was baking, let's say.
Yeah.
So I was kind of thinking that through, and I was like, I wonder, my dad must have recorded them on tape or something, and we would just like watch them every year as like a tradition in addition to the new one. But it feels like I actually was watching them at the time, but that can't be the case. But I agree with you. It kind of felt like every time it came around, like especially when I was little, I was like genuinely scared of them, and it kind of felt like, I know I shouldn't watch this because it's gonna give me nightmares, but I can't not watch it. And it just felt like this weird, like forbidden thing. Like I felt like I was in like this cool club, like watching them, even though.
And I will say over the years, they got more and more like gory and gruesome. Because I, in preparation for this episode, I spent most of the day just kind of watching them from the beginning onward. And then, The Simpsons at a certain point, I think kind of loses everybody. And I stopped getting interested in continuing to watch it. But it's funny just watching, like the first few episodes are really bloodless.
Yeah, they're innocent kind of, right?
Yeah, in a way. Like even when they had like zombies killing the town, like you don't really see anything. Now it would just be like guts going. That's like all it is now. Because like one of the more recent ones that I saw when they came out was like, hey, in this episode, because they're out of continuity, Sideshow Bob kills Bart. And I was like,
that one is messed up. I just watched that one too.
I was like, at the time, I was like, all right, I'll watch that. And then he just kills him over and over and over again.
Gross.
And he's like horrifyingly they're just gross. It wasn't even fun to watch. I was like, oh.
Just sick.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess the creators just have been sick of have just been hating Bart for years and just took it off in the one episode. But yeah, no, it's been a big part of The Simpsons in general has been a big part of forming my sense of humor as I grew up. But I know even lapsed fans, like, because even then I'll still occasionally watch a Treehouse of Horror episode just to see, even though I don't watch the show at all anymore. But I think that says something to its like enduring legacy. So I want to talk about why we think it might still be like an annual tradition to this year, not just for the creators of the series, but for people to watch. Like it's not Halloween unless you watch Treehouse of Horror. Um, I think one of the reasons for that might be well, one, everyone loves Halloween.
Yeah, I
And
mean
we
that
all
was
want to watch something like that this time of year.
everybody wants to get into the spirit, no matter like we we were just like flipping through Netflix, and I will sit down and watch anything Halloween related, even if it's like god awful, like the Netflix original films. Some of them are just like so bad to watch, but I'll watch them anyway.
Yeah.
Or like even like kid programming. So I think it's just like people love Halloween, and like they're always gonna sit down and watch it.
Yeah. The other thing I think they are allowed, because they're like out of continuity stories, it allows them to be really creative.
Mm-hmm.
So they're so much more interesting, not just in like the settings and things that they can put their characters through, but like even just the visuals and stuff they can do. Like we'll get into it later when we're talking about we brought our top episodes. We'll talk about them more in detail later, but like just watching it, like even the one where Ned Flanders is the devil and Homer goes to hell. There's
Mm-hmm.
so much creativity in the look of it and like how things are shot and when he's tumbling down, that it's really interesting to watch. And shows just like, especially then, didn't really do stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that kind of is maybe what like newer seasons are lacking a little bit. I think when you really sit down and you start to watch like all of them in a row, like you did, and I had just done that like a week ago, like sat down and just watched them all, and it's just like you're right, like those first, like I argue up to like the first 12, there's just such creativity in each of the scenes and just the way that they're drawn. And like I appreciate when they're always pulling things from pop culture, which is also I think another reason why it's enduring, because people love easy references that they're easily recognizable, they're fun to watch, they kind of like they pull from all different aspects of pop culture, so there's a little bit of something for everyone. But I feel like in those first couple of episodes, their story, they're not afraid to like write their own kind of stories. And I think that is yeah, you just love to see like the characters be in these weird situations that they don't always get to be. I mean, you could say that they're like pretty much in their normal routine, they're kind of being put into weird situations, but like fantasy situations where like, they're killing each other and stuff, but that they're going to be alive the next time you see them, it's just kind of fun to watch them out of context.
Yeah, I forget who coined the term. Because I watched all the commentaries for the classic seasons because I love them so much. But I forget who coined the term flexible reality that they live in.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the sake of a gag, like they'll change the like location of places or how much money the Simpsons have or don't have.
Right.
But as long as the characters, they stay true to the characters, then it's not so bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the things I think the better ones, even though they'll pull from like even a specific movie, but they'll pull from different pop culture, but like the segments will still kind of stand on their own. Like you don't have to have watched either I Am Legend or the Omega Man to enjoy the Omega Man segment.
Yeah. Are you kidding?
It's still good on its own, which is something I don't know if the newer ones like really get away from. I think they're a little too close to whatever or their jokes are a little too much like you need to know what they're talking about with Stranger Things or whatever.
I agree. You lose it a little bit. You're right. I think because they'll use one kind of idea as the main. It felt like they would use one idea as their main kind of concept to kind of like build the story around, but then they pull from all different films in that kind of like trope or whatever and like piecemeal it together. And I think that's like Dial Z for zombies. Like it has a little bit of every like classic zombie movie kind of trope in there, and I think that's like why it works so well, because they're just like it's just pulling, like I said, a little bit from everything that like people can enjoy or like their favorite movie.
Yeah, and that one specifically is just the zombie genre. It could have easily been like Night of the Living Simpson and just been like, oh no, they're stuck in a farmhouse, and it could have just been that movie, especially since it's in public domain, so you could just have shown the movie in it. But yeah, like again, we're gonna get into our top segments later on, and then we'll get into those a little bit more specifically. Spoiler alert, I have stuff to say about Z for Zombies and stuff.
Me too.
So with that, what would you say makes goes into making like a good Treehouse of Horror segment in your opinion?
Yeah. Okay. So this, I loved this question. I really like sat down and thought it through. Because I think the reason that the first couple are kind of like the ones that everybody can agree are just like, hands down awesome episodes are because they're timeless. Like you can sit down and watch it at any point in any year and enjoy like what the story is being told. And I think that like the ones that stay more true to the actual theme of like just Halloween in general, like are kind of more like classic Halloween ideas, tend to make good segments, as opposed to like the ones in more recent times seem to be just like movie parodies. They're not necessarily creepy or spooky or scary. And that's kind of like why we're trying to tune in. We're trying to like enjoy the holiday specifically. And I think that when the segments stay true to that, especially the first couple where it's like we have, and we'll talk about wraparounds, I'm sure, but like where they have the overarching story of like the kids trick-or-treating or telling the stories in the treehouse, it keeps like reminding you of like why you're tuning in, and I think that those kind of like hints and nods and seeing how this family would celebrate this holiday make that kind of like even more special in a way.
I will say I do miss the wraparounds. I know they got rid of them because they made the shows actually shorter now, so they could fit in more ads. So they just didn't have time for them anymore. And like, they always added something. Like I love the Night Gallery one. Like they don't have to be, because they usually kind of grounds it in like their world, because it's called Treehouse of Horror. Because in the first one, like the kids are in Bart's treehouse telling horror stories, and Homer happens to overhear them. But and then it's just since become a thing, which I've noticed. It's funny that the title screen always says the Simpsons Halloween special and then like the numerical number for it.
Right.
Even though the episodes are called Treehouse of Horror and then the numerical number. So I find that interesting in my rewatch, because I just always remember them as Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah, because it's such a good name. It's so like it's sweet. It's sweet and innocent at the same time as being like, like you don't really know what you're getting into until you sit down and watch it. You're like, oh my God. Like,
and I used to collect the comics as a kid growing up. Like Simpsons comics was my thing, but they would do, and they still, until they stopped publishing the books a couple years ago, they would do special one shot every year, just, Treehouse of Horror, whatever the year is. And I would occasionally pick them up because it'd be like something like, I think one of the last ones I got is because it had like a Ghostbusters parody in it. And I was like, all right, I kind of want that, stuff like that. Even though like I am going to complain that they go too hard into the parodies sometimes.
Agreed.
But I think it always comes down to execution, because when I was coming down and making my list, like some of them I like so much because they're such homages to specific movies.
You totally end up liking certain ones that maybe aren't as aren't super well made, just because it's like playing into something that is another interest of yours. Like that happens.
Yeah, and then I love Twilight Zone, and most of the episodes, if they're not a movie you recognize, they're actually a Twilight Zone episode, jumping off point.
Right.
But what makes them great is you don't need to have seen that. Like, you don't need to have watched Terror at 10,000 feet to enjoy Terror at 5.5 feet.
Right.
Or the Talking Tina episode, to like the one. I've got the Clown Without Pity is what it's called. One with the evil Krusty the clown doll.
Yeah, I think that I lost my train of thought. It'll come back.
It's fine. But I think what Pete, they need to get the right balance of humor and the horror. Because like, even though I was really scared from the early episodes, like they were funny too. Yeah. And that kind of helped you feeling safe. Like I remember Bad Dream House. It's in the first one. At the time I didn't know what it was, but it was an Amityville horror thing where they go in a house and like the walls are bleeding and trying to make them kill each other. Like I remember being really freaked out by that, but then like, there's a portal to another dimension and Homer throws an orange in there.
Yeah.
And then the other dimension throws a note saying, don't throw your trash in here. Like goofy little things like that I was able to kind of like latch onto and enjoy.
Yeah.
Or the twist at the end of the to serve man part, with Kang and Kodos in their first appearance.
Oh, and Kang and Kodos is also, I mean, we know they're in every season, but as long as they're there, I'm happy. Like
I'm not always. One time they went on the Jerry Springer show, and I'm like, this is.
Oh, come on. Live a little, Scott.
But and going down my list, one of my all-time favorite ones is very Kang and Kodos related. Not to give anything away.
I also think, and I could be wrong, but I feel like at the beginning, the music in those initial episodes are just, it's so good. Like the music is so good, and it's just like you can tell somebody really sat down and like thought that through so well. And I feel like in the later, the more recent ones, I'm sure the music is there, but it doesn't feel like it's as like integrated into the storylines as maybe like they are at the beginning with like the weird like theremin sound effects and stuff.
No, it's really atmospheric, and it's called like Weird Al, I think, coined this term of genre parody rather than just parodying like a song. Like the example is like Dare to Be Stupid is like a genre parody of like a Devo album.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not specifically a Devo song that he's doing, it's in that style. And I think they would definitely spend a lot more effort trying to like kind of recreate that feeling of the stuff that they're trying to emulate.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way. And again, it also helps them feel timeless. But with that, would you like to get into our top 10 Treehouse of Horror segments?
Yeah. Oh, I did have one more thing to say.
What's up?
A good segment. I think that some of the most successful segments are where we have the family kind of working in their dysfunctional but very sweet kind of way together to like solve the problem. You know what I mean? Like I think like that's what I tune in the show for, because I feel like even though the Simpsons are a crazy family, I can see like little parts of my family, and I'm sure everybody can see like little parts of your family like within their system. And I think like it's just like really fun to like kind of imagine like your family in the situations they're being put into and see if like you would have the same kind of sense of humor that they have.
Or, no, my family would get killed way faster than they ever do.
You just kill each other immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think like when they're not, as opposed to playing like a character in a parody where you're kind of trying to mimic somebody else, like I think the best segments are when they're just like being themselves and put into weird situations. Like that's successful for me. I love to just see them be themselves.
Fair enough. I was watching one of the more recent ones, and I remember watching the first half of this when it was new, but I guess I never finished it. I think I was at a restaurant or something. They had it on the TV. But like I watched the geriatric park one just because it's Jurassic Park. But like, I don't know, it felt like stupid, and like Jurassic Park's not really, it's not even really a horror movie. I mean, I will say that the it's really tense in certain parts, and I do think the T-Rex breakout scene is one of the best monster movie scenes of all time. But I don't know, just sometimes you lose a little bit when it's just like straight up, when it's not as horrific. I mean, I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite when we get to some of my lists, because some of them are really much more sci-fi than they are horror.
Right.
But I don't know. Like I said, it always kind of comes down to execution, and just I don't know. I felt like it really. They're like, what haven't we done yet? And I was like, we haven't done Dinosaurs. Let's just do that.
It's like you guys are, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm always gonna sit down and watch them. So
and also in research for this, I was reading a lot of reviews for the episodes as they came out. Just to kind of get a feel for like what people were thinking about them then, because I'd fallen off like the regular watching of the Simpsons train like 20 years ago. So Jesus, it's so old.
It is so old.
But I don't know. Someone coined the term. It's like they keep coming back to it because they want to really enjoy it, but it's like become their annual disappointment they do every year. And I'm like, that's it doesn't have to be, especially these episodes, because they're not. You're not constrained by anything. You can do whatever you want.
Right.
But I think they think too small now, because there's still tons of things they can do.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that when we get there.
Well, let's get into it now. You want to start us off with your number 10 segment?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that a lot of these I picked my top 10, but it was really hard to rank them, and I also made a runner-up category. So
Well, when you told me you made a runner-up category, I also did. So we'll go to honorable mentions at the end.
awesome. Okay. So my number 10, I tried to be fair and pick some things that happened after those, like, first like 6 or 7 seasons. And I was kind of like going through the list, and I always ended up landing on the island of Dr. Hibbert. And I think that this segment is like just, sorry, my cat wants to be a part of it.
No, it's no problem.
That I love that they're kind of pulling from a classic like story, right?
Mhm.
Of like the evil scientist living on the island and doing experiments on humans. But I think the reason I really love this segment is because I just love the way they draw all of the townspeople like animals. I think that and just like the way they played their normal character into how they would be as that creature, I think is really awesome. And I love that they made Homer a walrus at the end. It's like the perfect fit for him.
The only one I remember Marge is a blue cat.
Yeah, she's a blue cat and she's adorable. Like, I just love her as a blue cat. She's so cute. But
That's
yeah,
the only one I remember specifically who was what.
Homer's a walrus. Lisa turns into an eagle.
Isn't
Bart is
someone-
a spider who in his web writes "Eat my shorts," of course.
Okay. I was gonna say I couldn't remember if he was a bat.
No, yeah, he is a bat at some point, but not in that
Right.
one.
Well, yeah. I know he's a bat in one of my episodes.
Yeah, mine too.
It's funny. I was thinking about bringing that one up specifically earlier when I was talking about Geriatric Park, but that the Dr. Moreau one that where's Dr. Hibbert instead, I think started a trend where it's like we're gonna take the townsfolk and just make them like animals or like some sort of monster, and like it's just something I've noticed like they do a lot in the later seasons. I don't have any comment on it other than I've noticed that. But yeah, so my number 10, and is the latest, as the most recent one on my list, is Terror of Tiny Toon. It's from Treehouse of Horror 9 in 1998. That's the one where Bart and Lisa get stuck in an Itchy and Scratchy cartoon.
Yep.
I just love the idea that they're in the cartoon and Itchy and Scratchy are doing their thing, and they laugh at them like they do on TV. And then they're like, they're laughing at your pain. That's messed up. And then they try to team up to teach them a lesson. But it's so full of like wacky cartoon hijinks because they're in this cartoon world within a cartoon. And I also love that Poochie shows up for a very brief cameo.
That's right, he does.
Yeah.
Oh, Poochie.
But it also ends on, Itchy and Scratchy come to the quote unquote real world with them at the end. And they put Itchy in a cage and he's running on a hamster wheel. And Scratchy falls in love with their cat, so they go to get him neutered.
Yes.
I don't know. It's just something about it. It's a lot of fun, and it's very like Tex Avery-esque with its like wacky over the top cartoon violence. And of course, it's fun to see them like flip through the channels and then Bart and Lisa being on like Regis and Kelly and stuff.
Yes.
But that's my number 10.
The good one.
What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Easy Bake Coven. And I love Easy Bake Coven because I feel for Marge. I feel like she never gets to be the subject of anything really. And when she is, I feel like I love Marge as a character. I think she's totally underrated.
Oh, so do I. I feel like the writers at a certain point forgot what to do with her. Yeah. So they just made her like a nag.
Exactly. And she's not. She always had like a really dry kind of sense of humor, and just, I think that she, especially, I don't know, just watching all of these old episodes, like I feel like she also had a lot of awesome jokes and they kind of just like left that to the side at some point for some reason.
I just think she's neat.
Yeah. I love Marge.
Yeah.
Great. And I also am just, shocker, I'm sure. I'm a fan of a good witch story. I love witches. And anything that's kind of historical, I love that they kind of play into I have always loved the episodes where they go back in time or they play off literature or honestly, the only thing I know about the Bible is things I've learned from Simpsons episodes. Sorry.
Because there was that Treehouse of Horror-esque anthology episode. I can't remember what it's called. But like where they're sleeping in church and they're dreaming like the stories of
Yep. But yeah, Easy Bake Coven. I always love to watch Easy Bake Coven. And again, it hits on that classic Halloween where they at the end. So basically they're in Salem, right? And they believe that Marge is a witch and they put her through the witch test if they throw her into the river and she drowns, then she was human, but if she saves herself, she's a witch. She saves herself. And I love that she's just like this classic like green witch and she still has her bouffant, but it's like black and
like spiky. Yeah.
She just looks like really badass. And she goes back to her little witch hut and Selma and Patty are there and they're witches too. And basically the townspeople know that they're trying to eat the kids, but in the end, they actually invent trick-or-treating. So I just love that it kind of like, and it was the last segment in that season's episode. And I just love how it kind of like wrapped it around to like a nice kind of like ending that was able to like tie it back to the overarching idea of like, hey, remember, it's Halloween, like.
Yeah, and I also love that like, so instead of them stealing their kids to eat them, the townsfolk start giving them treats to like appease them. Right. I love that immediately, like the year after, it's already modern commercial Halloween, like Homer's dressed up as like a belly dancer and stuff. It's like egging someone's house because they didn't give him candy. Like I don't know, it is a really fun episode. It was one of the ones I was considering for my list. But my number 9, and this is going to show a little bit about like my movie preferences a little bit. Nightmare on Evergreen Terrace.
Oh yeah.
I love the Nightmare on Elm Street series. It was probably the first horror series I watched a lot of as a kid. And they take a lot of some of the best elements from that series for this one. Like the dream sequences kind of allow you to be like real crazy and creative, but it's also really funny. Like I'll never not remember lousy Smarch weather. Don't touch Willie. That's good advice. Millhouse having 2 spaghetti meals in a day.
Okay.
There's so much funny stuff in it. And then, Groundskeeper Willie, I think, is like the MVP of Treehouse of Horror. Every time he shows up, he's great. He's going to show up in almost every single thing I say from here on out. I'm looking at my list now, and that's basically true. But something about it, I've always loved it. And I think because when I was younger, because that one came out in 1995, so I was 10. And by that point, I had seen like at least the TV edits of their first couple Nightmare on Elm Street, so I was really familiar with the source material. It might have been one of the first ones where I was like, oh, I kind of know what this is, which now I'm thinking about is not true because obviously I knew what King Kong was. But I thought that it's something about it just always stuck out to me. I know I love like the really dark humor in it. Like Martin gets killed, and like they're wheeling him out, and then the sheet comes off of him, and he's like horrible and grotesque. They're like, don't let the kids see and stuff. I don't know. Something about it's really funny to me.
Roll him into the kindergarten.
Yeah.
No, and the blood curdling scream that comes out of Martin is genuinely terrifying. Like,
I know it's
scary.
It's one of the ones I think is legitimately scary. Like it shows Willie is dangerous and like the kids are in danger.
I remember as a kid, I would not watch that one actually because for some illogical reason, I was terrified of Freddy Krueger without ever seeing any of the movies or really knowing anything about the.
I mean, just looking at him, he's scary looking.
He's so scary. It was so like the part where oh my god, why do I want to call him? I want to call him Freddy. Where Groundskeeper Willie actually like is set on fire and like burning and turns into like the red burned skeleton.
Yeah.
I could not watch that until I was an adult.
Oh, that's the skeleton power part.
Yeah. I couldn't.
I thought that was. Oh, it's so funny when he's like burning it on fire and they're like, he's got the, Mitch Van Houten has the floor. He just sits down patiently and just continues to burn to death.
Yeah, you need to wait. And okay, so like anything. So now that I'm an adult and I am a teacher, any joke, and there's so many good like education school like teacher jokes in
there's so many I didn't get as a kid,
and they're so accurate, and it's just like that is how a PTO meeting goes. People are just like bickering about the dumbest crap, like like, are we going to pay for the doorknobs in the school? No.
$12. And then the whole for field fire extinguishers, now this is a free service the fire department has.
No. So funny. Oh, so good. That is a great one. I almost put that on the list too. I did. It was
I'm sure we're gonna have some crossover at some point. Which speaking of, what's your number 8 then?
Okay, so my number 8 is Dial Z for Zombies, which we kind of
Mhm.
already talked about a little bit.
But now we can dig into it a little bit deeper.
Yeah,
No
yeah,
pun
yeah.
intended.
So this one is from, let me take a look. I should have written down on my
Oh, I
list.
have that one on here. It's from Treehouse of Horror number 3 in 1992.
Perfect. There we go. And so this one, I think I just love this aspect of like, I don't know, there's something about the opening where Bart is doing a book report, and his book report is he has like an alphabet book for like a preschool.
Yeah, it's like a pop-up alphabet book. She's like, "Did you even read that?" He's like, "Read most of it."
Most of it.
Yeah.
He, like didn't even read the whole thing. So like Bart Simpson is as an adult teacher my nightmare, but also my
Yeah.
hero. Like I
Yeah.
feel like if I had that kid in class, I'd just bash my head on the desk. But
Yeah.
anyway, like there's like, you know, like that, you know, every horror movie kind of starts out with like you're following the lead character and they're just kind of doing something benign, but you know like something's coming, right? Like there's like this build in this episode, and like he goes home and Lisa's in the room and they're chit-chatting and she's talking and she's like, why, what, like why are you even talking to me? Don't you realize it's like the 4th year since Snowball 1 died on this day or whatever? And so then it kind of goes into like this Pet Cemetery almost type situation. I love Pet Cemetery. So like even they carry over their little like parody like satirical gravestones into their Pet
Yeah, I did appreciate that.
Cemetery.
I like that some of the Pet Cemetery ones are like Fish Police, and I forget the other two, but they are failed Fox TV shows.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I read about that on the internet.
Yeah. The only one I remember, because I remember the show Fish Police, and we can go into that one later. I don't want to derail it too much.
Yeah.
But,
Oh no, yeah. And
yeah.
like it's just, I don't know, it's just so good. Again, it's like playing into the, you know, we're working as a family unit to kind of like get through this situation, and they like are, you know, they get home. Well, he reanimates the dead on accident, trying to reanimate the dead cat. He reanimates the zombies, and they kind of like from there have to try and figure out how to unreanimate the zombies.
Yeah, and I like that they have to, you know, go back to the library and like, you know, there's lots of great gags. You know, the zombies try to eat Homer, but they want brains, and he doesn't have them, so they like go past him.
Yes, and they
I love that they already killed Flanders, and you know, Homer's got a shotgun, he's gonna get them there. And it's like, oh, you killed the zombie Flanders? He was a zombie. He was just gonna shoot him anyway.
I forgot the part where that's what prompts them to get the book, because Krabappel's like, you need to read a new book. So he goes to the library and he's like, oh, I've never noticed this occult section.
And
before.
it's like really demonic and like over the top. Yeah.
The walls turn to stone all of a sudden. There's cobwebs everywhere.
Oh, it's great. The design of it is so good.
Yes.
But that's what I was saying. Like they could get real creative and like really off model sometimes, you know, like that would look so out of place in a normal episode.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, that's a classic one. Like I said, it like we said earlier, it's like kind of a pastiche of just zombies in general. And it should be said, this is way before the modern like zombie like boom, and then it's since gone bust like in the 2000s. You know, so zombies were just kind of like a general monster, like, but nobody really cared about them. Like I can't even remember the last major zombie movie before this.
Yeah.
Probably Dawn of the Dead, and I think that was what, the 70s, early 80s. That I don't know offhand. That I don't have the dates for right now. But no, that's a good classic episode. And again, it's it has more of a general Halloween theme because it's not as specific. So for my next one, I'm glad you mentioned that you were a teacher, because I want to know how accurate this potentially happened. But my number 8 pick is Nightmare Cafeteria from Treehouse of Horror 5 in 1994.
Heck yeah.
Where, you know, that's the classic one where the teachers start eating all the kids.
Oh, so good. God, I love that episode.
Yeah.
I think that there are points in your career where you wish that were the truth.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, no, you don't want to eat the kids. That's not
all
good.
Right. I guess you'd be out of a job at a certain point. That is something I was thinking about while we were watching, because they're like, oh, we ran out of, you know, we just consolidated all the kids in this one class, and there's like 5 kids left. It's just like, what are they gonna do when they finish eating everyone?
Exactly. And like that's their solution to like their overcrowded detention. It's like,
and their poor lunch food.
Yeah, it's just like, you're not going to fix any fundamental problems. You're just gonna start murder. Like they're too lazy to actually fix anything, so they're just gonna murder them instead. That's probably pretty accurate, honestly.
Yeah. So your detention's not that bad, is it?
No, I don't even think we have detention in my school. but maybe I'll bring it up at the next board meeting.
Yeah,
Just an idea, spitballing.
As long as it's not the PTA meetings, they'll just
Right.
say no. But one of my favorite gags from it is, the kids go to Marge, like, hey, they're eating us at school. And she's like, I can't fight all of your battles for you. You just march right in there and tell them, don't eat
You're
me.
8 and 10 now.
Yeah, so it kind of gets away from that like logical gap. You might ask yourself, it's like, oh, why doesn't anyone else help them?
Yes.
It's really dark humor in that one, and I kind of really like it. And it's really grotesque. And in rewatching it now as an adult, at the end of it, it turns out, like when they show the blender and there's like big blood splatters and stuff, and it's like, oh my God. And then Milhouse falls in, and then the kids, Bart and Lisa fall in. I'm like, oh God. But the part I can't watch to this day, like I just skipped it, is after Bart wakes up and it's a dream. And they get that fog that comes in, it turns people inside out. Oh, I can't watch that. Especially when the dog starts like eating him. I'm like, oh God, I can't deal with it.
For the longest time watching it, I couldn't, it's the family is inside out, and then another person shows up, and I couldn't figure out who it was. And then it hit me, and I was like, "You're such an idiot! So obviously, groundskeeper Willie, like, listen to the voice, like." But they're inside.
I thought it was Grandpa, and they're all Dan Castellaneta. So
right. But no, I'm pretty sure it's groundskeeper Willie, because like he's in every. So I looked into this one because this whole episode is like my top favorite episode.
In doing this, I found out what my favorite episodes of Treehouse of Horror were.
Yeah, because like it's easy to pick the segments, but it's really hard to find like the solid, like all three are strong contender, like awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I wanted to go with segment rather than episode, because I figure that it's easier to kind of take them and look at them as their own thing.
Yeah, so they actually, I guess and you might have came across this in your readings too, but that season in particular, I guess they had kind of gotten in a tiff with like the Senate at the time, or like Congress, and like they were trying to really kind of what is the word,
like push the envelope a little bit.
Well, they were trying to edit them back, like they were
censor them.
The show, censor. Thank you. The show was getting like too, crazy, I guess, in their opinion. And so their reaction to that was, we're gonna make like the goriest episode ever, and like have Willie be murdered by an axe like 3 times in the episode, and have the family turned inside out, and Bart eaten by the family dog. Like, we're gonna make it
well, while you mention it, the Willie getting killed in every segment is probably my favorite running joke of all time. So especially because at the end he's like, oh God, I'm bad at this.
He's always there to save the day when he's not. Yeah, that Nightmare Cafeteria is definitely on my list. It's so good. And I love when they're backed up onto the like on this like diving board structure right above the food processor or the human process. I forget. There's like they have a gag.
It has a gag. I just watched and I don't remember what it is.
I don't remember what it is either. Like something human annihilator.
I think it's a gag based on like an actual like blender name that I'm not familiar with.
And they're like, don't worry, somebody always comes along to save us. And then Milhouse falls in. They're like, somebody always comes along to save the Simpsons children.
Yeah. But like, Willie was already killed before then, because that's when Skinner makes his appearance. He axes him. But like I said, I think Willie's the MVP for the horror episodes. He's in almost every single one I want to talk about.
Yes.
So what number are we on now? That was number 8. So why don't you let me know what your number 7 one is?
I chose the Omega Man for number 7.
Omega Man's good. That's in my runners up. Why don't you tell us why you like the Omega Man?
Okay, so like you said before, I never realized that was a film or anything before, and I watched that episode and I love it, and I don't know a darn thing about the Omega Man. So I think that speaks to how well this story is told, which is also something I feel like we didn't mention. It's incredible the stories that they can pack into these 6-minute segments. Like,
oh yeah, no, it's amazing.
It's amazing. And like it feels like you're watching a whole episode until you realize you're like, oh my gosh, there's 3 of these things. Like, it's crazy. And And I just feel like the story in that one is so good, and I love that it just begins with like a bit like just like an average morning, and Homer has the oh, what prompts it is that Mayor Quimby, what does he say about the French?
He says some, they don't say exactly what it is, but I think he compares them to frogs. But he's like, I stand by my ethnic remark, or whatever he says. Yeah.
Yes. And so France drops an atomic bomb on
Springfield, yeah.
On Springfield specifically, yes.
Or
and
I love the comic book guy. He sees the bomb coming. Oh, I wasted my life. Yeah.
That is rumored to be Matt Groening. Is that how we say his name? I've never known.
Yeah, it's Groening.
Favorite line, they say.
It's a good one. There's a lot of really great lines in it. I love when Homer's like realizing that his family's dead. And he's kind of imagining little Bart. They're all like hitting the ball. Little Marge, and she does it too. And then he's like, and then the rest, and it's like the pets and Maggie on TV.
And when Bart hits it, he hits the ball. Lisa goes, she hits the ball, and Marge is just so.
Yeah, Marge misses, and it's an audio cue, so if you might not realize it.
Yeah.
Oh no, there's a lot of great stuff in it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, what's up?
I just watched this right before I got on here, and you know when the mutants, when they do their car chase and the mutants get onto the car,
yeah,
I'm assuming that that's a car from some sort of like pop culture like monster movie.
It reminds me a little bit of I forget the name of it, but like the Monsters, I think it's just called Monstermobile. I think it's just like an over the top like monster hot rod, occasionally you see stuff like that designed. I'm sure it's something specific that I'm not thinking of at the moment.
Yeah.
But the part of that episode that makes me laugh the most is when Homer's doing whatever he wants. He's being rude in the movie theater. But I love when they just hard cut to him at the church naked singing War, What Is It Good For? Like that's the thing he's always been dreaming of doing. I don't know why that's so funny to me.
Hilarious.
And that's when of course the mutants show up and like we're just gonna eat your skin a little. Yeah.
And when he gets home, like nobody else is alive, but he gets home and he closes the door and the doorbell rings. He's like, that better not be the mutants. And then it's like obviously it's the mutants, bro.
No, that one's a good one. It was very close to making my list. It's just there's so much that's so good, and I tried to take nostalgia out of it, but it's really hard not to because I've been watching these over and over again for years now. So let's see. My next pick, also from Treehouse of 5 from 1994, is Time and Punishment.
Yep.
So it's the middle segment from that one, where it's the one where Homer accidentally invents a time machine toaster and goes back in time and I guess goes through the butterfly effect over and over again. I love the inciting incident for it where they're just eating breakfast and he's like, it's great to be alive. He has this little heartfelt speech like, oh my God, Dad, your hand's in the toaster. And he's like trying to scream and then smash it and getting it off. And eventually he does. And he slumps down like, it's back in. And something about that is so funny. And
he's just like, why? Oh my God, your hand's in the toaster.
So this one's not like traditionally scary. It's kind of existentially scary. But like he goes back in time, I love that it's the advice Abe gave him on his wedding day. It's like, if you ever go back in time, don't touch anything because you could change the timeline. But I was like, after he goes through that, he just sees a mosquito. He's like, ooh, bug, you go squish now, and kills it. And then it allows them to have all kinds of really fun, inventive set pieces. Like the first reality you go back to is like a world where like Ned Flanders like rules with an iron fist. And it's got a really fun gag where he's running from the dogs and he's got the wieners. He's like, this will give me the quick energy I need to escape. Then he eats them and then you go faster instead of throwing it to the dogs, as the gag would be. Which they also do in Lemon of Troy, where he throws the meat to the dog and just swallows it. And he's like, run, boy, he's got a taste for meat now. I love that gag, but then they keep going through all the different ones. He finds the perfect world, but they don't know what a donut is, but that's just because it's what their rain is. But he like changes the timeline before he finds out. Again, Willie's just randomly there. It's like, Homer, you're not in your right world, but I can get you there. And then Maggie kills him and has James Earl Jones's voice. It's like, this is a disturbing universe, isn't it? It's so, I don't know. It's a lot of fun. It's good. I also love Dinosaurs, and we get to see them, even though they don't make any sense because they're all from different time periods, and they shouldn't be there. I'll give away the not feathers thing because that's not what we realized at the time as much. But like it bothers me that there was Dimetrodon and Stegosaurus and was clearly a late Cretaceous period.
I didn't know you were such a dinosaur buff. I learned something about you.
Oh, I'm planning on doing a whole episode on this where we just talk about paleontology.
I'm gonna listen to it.
Oh no, anyway. I got to see Homer sneeze and kill the dinosaurs, so that's kind of fun, you know.
Yeah, that one I struggled with that one because I was like, oh, it's so good. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said like it's existential scary, because I think that like sometimes my perspective of what makes it my favorite is very narrowed by like, you know, it being like like I'm a Halloween purist, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but like you're right, when you watch it, you're like, oh, you know, this alternate reality where there's like a scary ruler who is like a dictator in a creepy way, like that's kind of too real, especially right now. Just saying, like.
Well, speaking of too real, I have one later on.
But yeah, I always forget that there's that little part where it's kind of like you know, like Ned Flanders is like this like 1984 kind of like surveillance type dictator.
Yeah, it's real interesting to think about. It's funny that Ned Flanders very frequently becomes like the villain in these
Yes,
things,
yes.
which I think we both have the similar. I think we're both going to circle the same episode on our list. But I know he shows up in a lot of these as the villain. Why don't you bring us on to your next pick? What are we on, number 6 here?
Number 6. Terror at 5.5 feet. I love this.
Right. That one was going to be my number 3, but let's talk about it now.
Let's do it. So Terror at 5.5 feet is based. Which season is this, Scott? Do you know?
It is Treehouse of Horror 5, so it's season 6. It's 1994.
Perfect. So it is based off of the classic Twilight Zone episode, Terror at 10,000 feet, correct?
Yep. One of the William Shatner's best performances. One of the best episodes of Twilight Zone. There's a lot of really great ones, and a lot of really great Treehouse of Horror segments are inspired by Twilight Zone episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite Twilight Zones. It's one of my favorite Treehouse of Horror.
So good. I the whole feeling of that episode is just like it, and like you said, trying to leave nostalgia out of it, but you just know exactly like that feeling of like it's early morning, you're getting on the school bus, it's like rainy, it's kind of like a dreary day, and like you just feel like something bad is like gonna happen, right? And like I just feel like you can really be in Bart's shoes, like in this situation, even though like this is such a like outlandish kind of idea.
And we've always had things where like people don't believe what you're saying, or you know, something like that.
Yeah. And it's just like it's this whole like psychological thing too, as well as actually being scary. I remember the end of this one always really kind of like creeped me out, the way that the segment ended. But
you don't like just decapitated Flanders talking
with his spinal cord hanging out the bottom. It's disgusting. Oh, Ned, poor Ned. But basically so Bart gets on the bus, and they randomly stop and pick up Seymour Skinner on the way to school because his mother wouldn't let him use the car that day. Is that the reason?
Yeah, he took away his car keys because he talked to a woman on the phone, and then he's like, she wants to do it, you know.
So they stop and pick him up on the bus.
Yeah, it's fun because they also pick up Willie on the way. And rewatching the episode, I never thought about it, but like Skinner closes the window for Bart, like there's like a blind. I was like, you know, school buses don't have that, but it's because there's a scene from the original short in the Twilight Zone where like he stops looking out the window, he's trying to like block out that there's this monster on the wing of the plane, and then he opens back up and its face is right there, and that's what the Willie scene is.
Yule just wouldn't go.
it's also the first appearance of Uter.
It is the first appearance of Uter. What does he say? What does he want him to?
I can't remember exactly what he says. It's like joystick or something.
Yeah,
like, he's got really goofy candy names. It's also really funny. Like the kids are all making fun of Bart, and Nelson's there, or not Nelson. Martin's there in his Wang Computers t-shirt, which was a real computer company. He's like, oh, I'm glad he distracted them from, took attention away from my t-shirt.
I think that like I love it when they focus on the kids too. Like I think that, I don't know, there's something really just like, I love when they feature all of the kids in their like little habitat. I mean, Homer does make an appearance. Like he drives by in the car with his foghorn.
Foghorn, yeah. Like, hey Bart, he's like hanging out the window.
He's clearly freaking out, like on the school bus.
My favorite gag in that one is when he goes to Otto and is like, there's a gremlin on the side of the bus, and looks out and Mole Man's driving a gremlin the car. He's like, oh, no problem, I got this. He just runs him off the road. And I love that the car like is going to go hit a tree, it stops, but then it just explodes. I don't know if that's a gag that's in a subversion of like hitting a tree and exploding, or a commentary because like the Gremlin was a terrible, terrible car.
Was it one of those cars where like if something touched the bumper, it exploded, or was that?
I don't remember if it was that, but I know it's like a notoriously bad car. But I just love the idea, like the gag of it being a gremlin, and so that's one of my favorites too. So my number 6 pick is from the same episode.
Okay.
It's called Bart Simpson's Dracula.
Yes.
And it's a parody specifically of Bram Stoker's Dracula, but there's other vampire stuff in it. Like there's just some general vampire things in it, and then there's like a Lost Boys scene.
Wait, what's the Lost Boys scene?
The part where Bart and the other kids are vampires and floating out the window, that's from Lost Boys.
I thought that was from Salem's Lot.
Maybe they have a similar scene in both.
I bet Lost Boys like took it from Salem's Lot, and then because Salem's Lot, it's literally just like it's the little boy's one friend like floating out the window.
Yeah.
And like that's where you learn that they can't come in unless you invite them. So I think that might just be like a vampire trope in general. But that
specifically is a vampire trope. Yeah. As is, putting a stake in someone's crotch. It's about
the American dream.
Yeah, no, I dare about the American dream, kill my boss. That's one of my favorite lines from it. Okay. But I'm sure you appreciate the part where like, Mr. Burns is like evil vampire lairs in Pennsylvania.
Yes, it's so good. I want to get the sign like as a patch or something. So good.
Yeah, I was thinking about, I was like, I'm surprised you don't put like that screen grab or something in your window.
Oh my God, I should. That's such a good idea.
Not trying to dox where you live for all the people on the internet, but
oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
I live somewhere in the large state of Pennsylvania.
Exactly. Yeah, I was thinking about you with that one earlier when I was watching. I was like, oh, that's funny. But like it's a lot of great jokes and stuff in it, and a lot of like great visual stuff in it. Like the vampires are really scary, even though one's clearly Mr. Burns. Yes. And he's being Mr. Burns is such a great character in general.
Have you watched? I think that this one specifically is based off of the I want to say like I wasn't.
The movie's called Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think it's Francis Ford Coppola made it.
And like Gary Oldman's in it,
Gary Oldman's Dracula. Like that's clearly Mr. Burns' design.
Style.
And that's why it's called Bart Simpson's Dracula instead of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I love that because it's the night gallery wraparound. I love that its painting is the dogs playing poker. Yes. And they're like, we had something so horrifying for this, but we couldn't show it, so we just whipped something together with vampires.
I haven't really seen that movie, but I do remember being a kid and like my parents watching it, and his shadow in the movie does its own animated things. And when Mr. Burns is coming in and greeting them, his like shadows in the background, like playing with a yo-yo, even though he's standing clenching his fingers. Yeah,
or if it tries to, it doesn't match his mouth flaps and stuff. Yeah, it's doing its own thing, which you may not even notice the first time you see it. But oh God, another great gag in it is they're talking about on the news about like vampire victims. They found a Dracula cape. It's very, very clearly vampires. And Chief Wiggum comes on, and is like, well, I think we're dealing with supernatural creature here. So we're very clearly a mummy. So we're destroying the Egyptian wing of the Springfield Museum and just cuts them, just burning it all and smashing it. That's great. Also, like mummy's kind of a weird monster in general. It's another culture's like burial practice.
Yeah, it's not even a monster. Yeah, someone well revered.
Exactly. But no, we're talking about vampires.
The super I think like this one's also one of my favorites, not because of all of the things we've already said, but I love that it's kind of like a team up of Lisa and Bart. I love when they team up and they kind of are working together. I don't know, that's just like really, that's like, I love that their relationship is just like that close, that like they're getting into this trouble together, and Lisa's like Bart's trying to tell her that the vampires are coming out making all of these weird like Three Stooges voices.
Yeah, because I've seen your shimp. Yeah, I've seen your curly too. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Oh no, there's so much great stuff, man. Talking about being densely packed, there's so much great stuff in this that we barely touched upon the super happy fun slide. We haven't talked about Grandpa coming in saying we have to kill Bart. Like, how'd you know he's a vampire? He's a vampire, and he runs out. The gag at the end where the whole family was really vampires the whole time because they didn't kill the lead vampire, and then that leads into the Charlie Brown Christmas like ending, which I think is kind of a cop out because they're like, I don't know how to end this.
Yeah. How do we undo this?
That's fine. Oh yeah, it's so good. Like bang for your buck, just like you said, like just 5-6 minutes, just so much in it.
I also wondered if like maybe because sometimes they I thought if maybe when the Charlie Brown Christmas ending was kind of like a poking at the fact that like sometimes their episodes come out like a week or two after Halloween, people's minds are already like, where are the Christmas episodes?
I was gonna make a joke at the top of this, is like our episode will actually come out in October. Because I think frequently they get shown in like November and stuff now. I know that's been a thing. Like people are like, I want it for Halloween, and we keep not getting it. But I'm a huge fan of Charlie Brown Christmas. I'm planning to do a Christmas special episode in December, so we'll save that conversation for then.
That's a good one.
But that's one of my favorite things of all time. But yeah, so oh my god, so Bart Simpson Dracula, there's a lot to talk about. Kayla, we're in the top half now.
I know.
What's your number 5 pick?
Well, so my number 5 is Nightmare Cafeteria, and I feel like we did it pretty well.
I'm curious, what made you because I know why I put mine as high as, why'd you put yours so much higher?
I think I put mine so much higher because that one really played into like, like I feel like that's such a childlike fear, like such an innocent fear. Like you think like, what do your teacher, like you remember being a kid and being like, do the teachers like sleep and live in the school?
Yeah.
Or like, what's that situation like? And like, I feel like that's such a thing like that you genuinely would be scared of as a child. Like you can really kind of like sense the like unease in the whole like kind of story arc. And I don't know, I think that like Skinner has a lot of really good lines in it, especially like when they're sitting in the cafeteria and they're like, oh, like haven't seen Jimbo today. He usually like beats me up around this time.
Yeah.
And like, Skinner's like, you could say we all have a little bit of Jimbo in us right now. And then he like goes on to
goes too far and talks about how they're he's like, wait, no, scratch that last part. Yeah.
That's too far. Yeah.
I
don't know. It's just so good. Like I just always think of that one when I think back to like which ones I really get the urge to watch,
Yeah. So my number 5 is King Homer.
Yeah, good one.
Treehouse of Horror 3, 1992. I'm a huge fan of the original King Kong. It's a piece of cinematic history. Like I think everyone needs to watch it at some point. Even though it might seem like really corny and dated, like it's such a magnificent piece of like our shared history. And this is legitimately a great send up to it. A bunch of lines and exact shots are like painstakingly recreated in this. Now I know I was praising like ones that like stand on their own. I think this one still does. But as a King Kong nerd, like you can appreciate like all the weird shots of like Homer's head. Like that's the shots they would reuse of a giant gorilla head they would have. I think this is the first time they really showed them eating, like killing a lot of people. Like Homer eats like half the town. There's some really good gags in it. Well, like when Smithers mentions like, I don't think women and seamen mix. And Burns is like, we all know what you think. The women and seamen line is from King Kong.
Is it really?
Yeah. Like, so they're like, oh, we can make this an easy kind of gay joke.
That's amazing. I'm not familiar with the original King Kong. I've never sat down and watched it.
You should watch it sometime. Although you might have a similar problem with this that I do with one of my later picks.
Okay.
Since you're familiar with the Treehouse of Horror version before you watch the original movie. Yeah. But we'll get into that then. I love at the end when Homer's like on his rampage and he steals Marge and starts climbing the building and he gets really winded and he falls and like gets defeated from only going up like a story. Like that's such a funny reveal to me. There's so much great stuff. Like they end up getting married at the end and like some monkeys come in like, oh, bride or groom side. And I don't know. There's it's legitimately funny and you don't need to have seen King Kong, but like it's so ingrained in pop culture. Like you kind of get what it is, especially since like grandpa's telling the story and he's like, well, I don't know any scary stories, but I have seen a lot of movies. So he's just kind of telling the movie story. I also love when Mr. Burns is trying to gas Homer to catch him. He throws it, like goes like 2 feet and he gasses himself. I don't know. There's a lot of great stuff in it. I just
dark one day.
Yeah, exactly. Some of Mr. Burns is always funny, and it's a good Mr. Burns episode as well. Because they're talking about like, oh, I don't think he's dead at the end. He's like, well, his career is dead. because there's lots of great Broadway jokes like that. It's like we'll put him on, what's he do? Well, we put him on stage for 5 hours and he stands there, and then we have something else happen. It's like, yeah, that's what was the King Kong show gonna be? He's just there. But yeah, no, it's a lot of fun and one of my favorites.
I think one of my favorite parts of that one is he picks up Lenny and Carl goes to shoot at King Kong and hits Lenny's dead.
Yeah, first he puts him in his mouth and then he pops out and he's like, "Hey, stop eating me!" Yeah. And then Carl shoots at him. He's like, "Oh, thanks a lot, Carl." And then he finishes eating him. So good. I like he's like, "Quit it."
In his Lenny fashion.
Yeah, not Lenny. What's your number 4 pick?
Number 4, this one might be controversial, but okay. I love this one. Number 4 is The Raven from the first Treehouse of Horror, and I love this episode specifically for what we mentioned before and how creative and just like artistically drawn this whole thing is. Because like I think they knew that, reading a poem from like 1854, like the joke is that Lisa the intellectual is trying to scare Bart in the treehouse, right? So she pulls out, she's like, "I'll show you what's really scary," and she starts reading The Raven, and it's Old English, like Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, it's literally they're reading The Raven, and then essentially the Simpson characters are acting it out into fantasy. And
James Earl Jones is the voice, the narrator of The Raven, which is just lovely.
Well, we should mention in that episode was the first Treehouse of Horror, and he was in every segment.
Yes, he was in every segment. But like it's really funny because he was really minor he was minor in the first one. He was just the voice of the mover.
Yeah. And then he's the voice of the chef. I forget his name. To serve.
He has like a long like alien name, and he's like, if you tried to say it, I'd have to cut your tongue out or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. They never say what his name is. That's why I don't remember what it is.
I love like just the really crazy like exaggerated colors and like the exaggerated distorted room from like the perspective of Bart the Raven, and like Marge is supposed to be Lenore and her portrait's on the wall and it goes all the way because her hair is so tall, and then
I think it's in a couple of portraits at the end
to catch the rest of it. And I just think it's so beautiful, and just I love Edgar Allan Poe, and Bart as a Raven is just like adorable. Like I just want to have Bart as a Raven.
It's amazing that they're able to fit any humor into it, because again it's so compact, but like it's still got a lot of humor in it as well. Because there's a part where Homer gets real as the protagonist gets really upset at Bart at the Raven. He's like, "Why are you little?" And they start chasing each other around the room a bit, and then like Homer gets knocked on the head, and then it's doing the cartoon thing of the Ravens, nevermore, nevermore. You're right. It's kind of a work of art. Just those few minutes there.
It really is, and just like
it's very moody and great. Yeah.
It gives like Dan Castellaneta, like he's actually like he's a fabulous, phenomenal voice actor all of the time, but like in that one, I feel like he's really acting like he's acting like a like a theatrical actor.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's almost like they're putting on a play.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's maybe why I like it. It's so theatrical, and it's just like really classic. I love it.
It's definitely the classiest of all of these.
Definitely.
Well, my number 4 pick was Terror at 5.5 feet. Okay. The reason I put it, I think, as high as I did is just it's legitimately tense at a lot of, and it's the perfect mix of comedy and like tension, because they take the Gremlin's not really a source of comedy except for maybe the very end, but like so the threat's real, but like the characters are kind of still silly. I don't know. See, part of it is just like I'm such a big fan of the original version as well.
Yeah.
And I did see this first, but I love that it how much of it the original like captures like Bart's like descent into madness. Because nobody sees the Gremlin, nobody believes him, and just like the desperation of like of him trying to like help everyone, and like not being able to do it. I don't know, something about it is it's so great, and just I love it, and so it's easily one of my top 5 ones.
It's a classic, hands down. So good.
Yeah. All right, what's your number 3?
Okay, so my number 3 is Bart Simpson's Dracula.
Okay.
So I feel like we covered like pretty much all of it. I mean, I love the like, I like when they're going into the dinner. First of all, you're like, we kind of think that the Simpsons might live on the West Coast, so why the hell would Mr. Burns' like summer home be in Pennsylvania?
I mean, it's the joke because Transylvania.
Yeah, I know, but it's just like so stupid. And then he invites them over for dinner, but Mr. Burns, like, why would he invite the Simpson family? Like, of all of the families in the power plant, I feel like they're the least.
Well, he says it on the intercom after he welcomes him. Like, yes, another more.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
My growing army. And then Smithers, you hear Smithers like, yeah, take your finger off. He's like, oh, son of a, and then he cuts off.
That is true.
Again, there's more we can talk about with it because it's so dense.
It's so jam-packed. It really is. And like, keep talking. There was part of it that we didn't talk about, and it's like one of my favorite parts of it. No, I can't remember.
We talk about the super happy fun slide. And Bart's like, how often am I going to be here? So he does it, but he comes back around again when the family's going down there to kill Mr. Burns. And Homer's like, ooh, super happy fun slide. They stop him from using it. Oh, well, maybe killing will be joined in recess.
Yeah, it's just so good. There's so many jokes in that one, and they just like keep coming like one after the other, and it's just amazing.
I mean, yeah, like just even the part where Homer's killing Mr. Burns, you don't see him, you just see him staking into the casket, and then Lisa's like, Dad, that's his crotch. Oh, I'm sorry. And then he goes and kills him. He dies and he turns into dust, and like, oh, who? Then he comes back to life and it's like, you're fired, and then goes back into dust. Yeah,
I remember. Okay, so it's like right after Bart pulls the lever to the super heavy fun side, and he slides all the way down, and the vampires catch him at the end, and then Mr. Burns flies in as a bat transforms, and he goes, I don't know exactly what he says, but he's like, oh, it's you, boy, because he can never remember their names. There's like a whole episode about how Mr. Burns can never remember Homer's name.
Oh, that's Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 1. That's Homer's motivation for shooting him.
Oh, right. That's right. So like it's just like funny how he's just like, Mr. Burns is just like an evil turd, like
he's so enjoyable to watch.
Yes, he's fabulous. You love to hate him, but he also has moments where you're kind of like, I kind of love him too,
Well, those get fewer and farther between.
They do.
In general,
they sure do.
So speaking of classic horror movies, my number 3 is The Shining.
Okay.
Completing out my Treehouse of Horror 5 grouping. I saw this so many times before I ever watched The Shining. It kind of ruined The Shining for me.
No.
It's still a great movie, but it's like, oh, now I see how close this one was to it. But it shows like I was still very much able to enjoy it on its own. It's so great. Where do I even begin? I love that it's called The Shining. And Bart calls them out. Oh, he's like, oh, you mean The Shining? And Willie's like, oh, no, you want to get sued? Starts the runner of, Willie comes to save them. And then Homer axes him in the back. So that happens in every segment this season. I love that instead of just there being ghosts that kind of possess the father figure, it's there's no TV and no beer. So he just goes crazy. There's so much great stuff. Like the part with the blood, the very iconic scene. It's like, oh yeah, blood usually gets off on the second floor. Now that I'm bringing it up, I'm surprised they didn't do a thing with like twins. There's still so much they could have pulled from.
Yeah, but they have the bartender. Great.
Yeah, which is Mo, which is always great. Kill your family, I'll give you a beer. Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, waste your family.
Yeah. Oh, I love after Marge knocks him out and puts him in the freezer. Like he wakes up and is just eating everything. But like Mo's knocking on the door. He's like, hey, Homer, the ghouls and I aren't really are a little concerned with the progress on the project. And they all just come in and like free him and drag him out. It's like the Wolfman and Dracula and stuff. The part where like Marge sees the typewriter and says, feeling fine. She's like, oh, it's so good. And then the lightning strikes and the whole room's like covered in like no beer, no TV, make Homer go something. And she's like, oh, this gives me, forget what she says now. I just rewatched it.
This is more concerning.
Yeah, this is more concerning. So underplayed, which is when Marge is used best.
Yes, and that's why she's so good.
Then Homer comes in, it's the greatest, one of the best scenes, one of my favorite scenes in the show. when she's like, he's like, I'm thinking of a title. I was thinking of calling it No TV and No Beat or Go Something Something. And she's like, Go Crazy. And then when he goes, Don't mind if I do, and then him just going crazy is the funniest thing. I always thought that was hilarious. And like still kind of menacing. Because immediately after that, like Marge gets a baseball bat and like she's fighting him off, and like he's still going nuts. And then the end is, obviously iconic, where they get the little portable TV while he was watching, Urgico family like fading, rising, fading. Thing is so great. And then, they do the whole Frozen thing from the end of the Shining. And the Shining's such a good movie. Like they're pulling from such great material that's already a really great foundation to work on for an episode. But that's the Shining in as small a nutshell as I think I can put it.
All right, we might have the same one for this one.
All right, what's your number 2?
Is it The Devil and Homer Simpson?
No.
Oh, is that your number 1?
Spoiler alert, that is my number 1 pick.
That's okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
The Devil and Homer Simpson is a phenomenal segment. It is so perfect.
I consider it the quintessential Treehouse of Horror segment.
Quintessential Treehouse of Horror segment. It really is. And it's just it has everything you need. It has Ned Flanders as the devil, and they go, it's always the one you least suspect.
Yep.
It has Homer being a greedy, selfish idiot that he so perfectly is. Mm-hmm. It has Marge as like her doting, like just like, are we really going through this again? Like attitude, but she's like by her man, and like. It's just, it's so good. You have Lionel Hutz, who's just like this seedy, awful lawyer who can't do anything right. I think
this is the only Treehouse of Horror segment that has a Phil Hartman character in it.
I think so. And it's just so good. It's like, so basically, if you don't know, what season is this from? This is Treehouse of Horror 6?
Treehouse of Horror 4 from 1993.
Okay. And basically,
which I think I also have all 3 segments on my list. Yeah.
I think, I did.
This is the Night Gallery one. It's Devil the first one, then it's Terror at 5.5 feet, and then it's Bart Simpson's Dracula.
Yes. And basically, so Homer's like at the power plant and he has a donut, or he says, I would give my soul for a donut. And the devil,
he missed all the donuts.
Because he missed all the donuts. And the devil comes in, and the devil is none other than Ned Flanders. Mm-hmm. And he gives him a donut, a soul donut. And basically Homer like engulfs the whole thing except for one bite. And he's like, so if I don't eat this bite, then you don't have my soul.
Like, well, technically that's true. So then he says it like, oh, I outsmarted the devil. He turns into a big monster devil.
He's like, you are not smarter than me.
Yeah. Which is a really cool visual. Yeah, like how the camera pulls out and stuff.
It's awesome. I love when that's also something I really love about House of Horror. It's like, because the Simpsons are, when you really look at them, you're like, this is the weirdest like design I think seen, right? But then like they'll get really like realistic on you out of nowhere just to like try and, scare you, really, like he goes from like happy Ned Flanders with horns to like this big super realistic like tattoo looking devil almost like that
he looks like the stereotypical like he looks like he looks like Chernobog from Fantasia.
Yep.
From Night of the Bald Mountain sequence. All right, spoiler, it is my number 1 pick. I love all of the hell stuff. I love when Homer finishes the donut eventually, in a sleepy stupor. He goes, forbidden donut, and eats it. So Flanders sucks him down to hell, but not before agreeing to like some sort of trial at a time. But he's like, you're going to spend the day in hell though. So, just the scene where he's tumbling down into it.
So good. He's hitting up the rocks.
He falls down onto a assembly line. He gets chopped up into pieces and put into like hot dog meat. There's the Aaronic tortures division of hell. They feed him every donut in the world, and like he loves it. I forget who he said. The demon says, like, I forget who he says went crazy in like 15 minutes.
It's not Marlon Brando, but it's somebody.
It's someone I'm terrible with names to begin with.
It's like it's one of those actors. He was like a classic actor, and then he got all big and old and fat.
So, but like, of course it ends in a Lionel Hutz courtroom scene in the family living room, which is great. I love that the big win that Huts got when they're agreeing to ground rules is they'll get bathroom breaks, but then the devil gets to pick the jury. And it's who is it? Slitty Borden, Richard Nixon, Blackbeard, Benedict Arnold, like the starting lineup with the 1976 Philadelphia Flyers. There's a couple other people.
Like you had Benedict Arnold.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait, let's see. Lizzie Borden, Benedict Arnold. I think that is all of them.
Yeah, because the Flyers are a lot of characters.
And then Richard Nixon's like, I'm not dead yet.
True at the time. He's like, hey, I did you a favor. Yeah. No, it's legitimately funny. It's really creative and interesting. It's like I said, to me, it's the quintessential.
It's so good because it's their story. Like exactly. Like I'm sure they pulled inspiration from many things, but like that is through and through like one that is like genuinely not solely based off of something from pop culture. It seems like something that they put together themselves. It's like homebrewed. It's really good.
Yeah. Other than like if you count the Bible as pop culture.
Well, true.
Because there's the devil in that, but you know, they didn't have a donut feeding machine in that. As far as I'm aware, I might go. You know, if that was the case, maybe I'll start going to church. But
like hell, like the day now. Oh, and so then at the end, we find out that the devil can't own Homer's soul because he pledged it to Marge on their wedding day, and so
yeah, it's a real sweet moment. You know,
really sweet. I know, you're just like, oh, that I did not see that coming. Like that's so sweet. Yeah. Like he's such a bumbling idiot, but when he gets it right, he gets it so right, you know, like
which makes the later season so disappointing when he becomes Homer.
I know, he's just kind of sad. Yeah.
Well, he's just mean and there's no reason to keep being around him.
Agreed. Yes, but he's so and so basically they win the trial, but his punishment is that his head has now become a giant ring donut. And he keeps like picking at it.
Yes, he's got like a piece of it's missing. But I love that all the cops are waiting for him. Like,
waiting outside, yes.
The coffee. They're like, he has to leave sometime.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Oh, good one.
That's a great one. Oh. So my number 2. I wonder if this is your first one. It's Citizen Kang.
I do love that one, but it's not.
From Treehouse of Horror number 7 in 1996. So much like this year, 1996 was an election year. So this was, I remember distinctly because I was 11 in 1996. And this is kind of the first presidential election I was kind of like really aware of. And since it came out, this came out like weeks before the actual election was. So that's all that was on TV was like Bob Dole and Bill Clinton. So it's kind of interesting that I actually sort of knew what they were talking about. It's not really a scary episode. I think it's more just they were like, it's going to come out right before an election. Let's have fun with it.
Yeah.
But there's so much great quotable stuff that's really stuck with me through the years. It's a 2-party system. You have to vote for one of us. I made a whole Mario Maker stage based on, I forget who was Bill Clinton. It was either Kang or Kodos, but we were talking about like, we have to move forward, not backward, upward, not forward, and always twirling towards freedom. I made a whole Mario Maker level based on just that quote, where you had to go through like those stages. Like,
so good. I'm gonna play it.
Yeah. No, it's great political humor. Even though it's very specifically about that election, I think a lot of things it has to say about how we elect things are still true to this day. Especially at the end, it's like, don't blame me, I voted for Kodos. Or it's like either way they were going to enslave the planet. But yeah, no, I love Citizen Kang. Oh, I love them. They're to not believe to make it so people wouldn't believe his story is like, oh, they're gonna mind erase him. They just poured bourbon on him.
Yeah.
So I think he was just drunk and no one would believe him. Believe Homer about his like scheme that he saw with where they replicated Bob Dole and Bill Clinton and start running against each other. Citizen Kang it's up here because it's just one of those ones that always sticks with me even when it's not Halloween season.
Yeah. And it's also just like, I mean, like you were saying, it has such strong commentary on like our political system, but I also think it has a really strong commentary on how like stupid they think like the public is, because clearly these 2 space aliens are impersonating the presidential candidates, and they're just acting
ridiculous. Like they're just like so obviously not.
Oh my God. I love, remember the speech where abortions for all, boo.
Yes.
Abortions for none, boo. Well, abortions for some, miniature American flags for others. Yay. It's like, oh my God.
Or like, I love when they're walking down the street holding hands.
Yeah.
The campaign manager pulls them over. It's like, we're growing. Voters are a little confused by the fact that you're always holding your opponent's hand while
If you can think of a better way to exchange long protein strains, I'd like to hear it.
Yeah. It's such a good episode.
But even then, it's like one of those things, like you couldn't be civil or even friendly with your opponent. Like, and this was, Jesus, 14 years ago, you know, so.
Well, and there's even a moment when so the actual Bob Dole and Bill Clinton are on the spaceship and Homer's about to save them. And they're like, Bill Clinton goes, you know, while I was suspended in animation, I was thinking about, you know, like, why do we have to be a two-party system? We could work together to solve the issues. And Bob Dole's like, you're right. Like, let's do it. And then Homer like thinks he frees them and then ejects them.
Ejects him into space. Yeah. Because they were also his key to proving that, you know, because they were going to show up and there was going to be two of them. They'd have to do the ask us only things only we would know thing. And Homer can just go down there and just rip their faces off. And
it's just their eyeballs sticking out of the collared shirts.
Yeah. I believe I'll vote for a third candidate or third party candidate. Go ahead. Throw your vote away. And people still voted for them because they were Democrat or Republican.
Oh, so good.
It makes me so depressed.
I know. It's too real.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those ones, just like, because you see it every election year, you see like the lawn signs that say Kang and Kodos or whatever.
We should get those. Let's get them for this election year. Let's make them.
I think we a little too much of election season. Because as of this recording, like the election's only like 4 weeks away, so we're almost there.
All right, we'll save the idea for another 4 years.
Yeah. Hopefully we're here in another 4 years.
That's true. Good point. We probably won't have elections anymore if it goes one way.
Yeah, we don't have to get into all of that. So what's your number one pick? I'm very curious now.
It's The Shining.
It's The Shining. Okay.
The Shining.
I was surprised you didn't say that one yet. So I was like, I wonder if that's her first.
Yeah. I love The Shining. It's my favorite book. It is one of my favorite movies. So it just is the perfect. And like you said, I saw the segment first, and my mom, like, I remember being a kid and my mom saying like, oh, that movie's like one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. So I like never got around to watching it because I was being like a big scaredy cat. And then I went through this like one summer where I just like read all of Stephen King's books and I was like, this is awesome. Like, what a great story. So I finally watched the movie and I was like, this is amazing. And like the whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm thinking about The Shining.
That's what ruined my first experience with it. I'm like, it kept making me just think about The Shining.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And I love the line that my family to this day still quotes is when Homer gets the portable TV outside and he's like, mother or teacher, mother, secret lover. Talking to the TV. It's like, that is so true. Like,
it's again it's the perfect mix of humor and fear.
Yes.
Oh my God, one of my favorite parts is, you know, the here's Johnny part.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that.
And then he goes to another room. It was like David Letterman, and then Grandpa's there. It's like, hi David, I'm Grandpa. And then he goes to the right room and does the whole intro from 60 Minutes, including holding a stopwatch.
And that's
and all this and more when Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes. Like, oh, it's especially great because like my mom's always watched 60 Minutes. So I've grown up watching that. So I actually got the reference and I thought that was awesome as a kid. Funny fact about that is I always wanted Andy Rooney's job. Just be an old man and come on and complain for 5 minutes every week about something and then just be paid for it. I would have been so happy.
Yeah, man, make it happen.
I guess that's why you do podcasts now.
Yeah, right. We're kind of making it happen right now.
Yeah. Except I don't complain in this one as much. I try to focus on things that bring a little positivity into the world. Because we're not talking our bottom segments, which I don't think I could pick because a lot of them are just boring. I just don't want to watch them.
They're pretty, basically anything recent. But I love when Bart and Willie figure out that they have this power, and Willie goes, you can reach me anytime using the Shining, except between 4 and 5. That's Willie's time.
Yeah. So unfortunately kind of can guess what you can kind of infer what Willie time means.
And not to mention that when Bart runs into Willie, the way he gets through the hedge maze is he just has a chainsaw and he's cutting through.
He's got like a hedge trimmer, like electric hedge trimmers. Like, oh, I found a shortcut in your maze.
It's just such a good episode. Like
and when they're cutting the cable and taking the beer to ensure like honest workers. When Smithers is like, do you think this is why all the previous caretakers went crazy and murdered their families? Like, tell you what, if we come back and everyone's slaughtered, I owe you a Coke.
So good. Yeah. And even the intro, like the movie where it's like the long
the road,
with the music, like they turn the Simpsons theme music into that like droning kind of creepy like dun dun dun, dun music, and like they're driving up and Marge goes, "Did you remember to lock the back door?" And Homer's like, "Don't." And so it starts on like Monday or something, and then it's like
the next day,
Tuesday, them like driving up again, and something about
when you lock the front door, do you remember to lock the back door?
Yeah. And then it flashes again to Wednesday, and then they're like, "Oh, I think we forgot." At least it goes something about like, "Oh, I think we forgot Grandpa." And Homer just keeps driving.
Yeah, they forgot him at the gas station. Nobody says anything and just keep going. They're all clearly upset. They had to drive this 3 times in a row.
So good. It's so good.
Well, that makes when he shows up again, when the David Letterman part, he's in his coat with his bag. He just got there.
Yeah. I didn't put that together. Oh my God, that's so funny. I just put that Thank you for putting
that. Did you notice the part where like, Homer's trying to start the TV and Maggie's playing with blocks and she spells red rum?
Red rum.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just so good with details. And like when he's figuring out, he's like, the cable's cut.
That's weird. Maybe I'll have a beer. Oh, not a drop in the house.
There's not a drop in the house. And Marge is like, "You're taking this surprisingly well."
He's like, "I'll kill you. I'll kill all of you." Like instantly flips that. It's such a great episode.
Oh, it's so good.
Very worthy of being a number 1 choice.
Yeah.
And I guess then in the spirit of my number 1 choice being what we already talked about, for me, it was The Devil and Homer Simpson.
Yeah.
For all the reasons we said, it's just so great. And it's such a classic. Yeah, so I don't think there's much more I have to say about that one that we didn't get into the one you brought it up. Let's bring up our honorable mentions real quick. We won't go into too much detail. I think let's just go through them real fast. What are yours?
So I have. Can I say 5? Just like a little blurb about each.
That's fine. I wrote 6. So.
Okay. So this one is probably controversial, but I thought maybe you might appreciate this one too because you're a Charlie Brown fan. But I loved It's the Grand Pumpkin Mailhouse.
That one was cute.
It was cute, and the jokes were a little lame, but I just loved how they were playing on like that classic style of the Peanuts and It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. And I just love that the pumpkin monster, he sees what you do to jack-o'-lanterns, and he's just like so disgusted by the fact that like you cut them open and scoop out their unborn children, which is the seeds.
Yeah.
And he's just like so upset and just like starts raging.
Yeah, the ending of that is what sells that whole bit.
So I love that one. The Thing and I was a close one to my list because that one genuinely as a child scared the bejesus out of me.
That's the one with Hugo, right?
Yes. So they find out
that one's really scary, actually.
Yeah, it's so scary. So they start hearing sounds in the attic and they're like, "What is going on? What's in the attic?" And Marge and Homer are acting kind of weird. And it turns out that Bart has an evil twin that they've locked up in the attic and he's loose. And it scared the crap out of me. Like that one really frightened me. And then it turns out that the whole time Bart was the evil twin and Hugo was the good one. So they switched them.
Yeah, and Bart's stuck up in the attic eating fish heads.
So good. So this is a little annoying note, but I was kind of just watching that one today. And there's a moment where Dr. Hibbert lifts up Hugo's shirt and he's like, "Oh, the characteristic evil left twin." He lifts up the shirt and he's like, "Oh, the scar's on the wrong side." But the scar is on the right. The scar is on the correct side if you were the left twin. I feel like that was just like a little hiccup from
yeah, maybe. I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
I have to go back with it more of a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah. But yeah, so that one's not on our mention. I Know What You Did, Leadley Did. I love that one.
Again, another one where Flanders is the monster of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a surprise at the end. Spoiler alert.
We won't tell you what actually happens in that one because that one is a good twist, but that one's really good. Homer Cubed is, I'm assuming.
That's one of my runners up just because it's interesting to see Homer in 3D, even though like now that's so not an impressive piece of technology. At the time, it was mind-blowing.
And that one also left me feeling so sad. I was like, he's never coming back. Like he's
No.
stuck in this world. I feel horrible for him. Like,
Well, he's not dead. He got to go to an erotic cake store in the real world.
yes, he loves the erotic cake store.
Um,
And then Time and Punishment, which is a fantastic segment. And
I do love Time and Punishment.
such a good one.
All right, so my runner-ups. I also had Homer Cubed. I had the Omega Man and Z for Zombies, which we already talked about. I had Clown Without Pity.
Good one.
It makes that runner-up one just for the joke at the evil shop, where the only reason this exists was to fill time. The whole like that's good, that's bad sequence is so amazing, and you can tell they reuse a lot of the same animation because it was made to be cheap. It was too short, so they just needed to pad out the episode. But it's one of the funniest jokes. So that's Clown Without Pity. I had Lisa's Nightmare, which was the episode where like every segment was called like someone's nightmare. That's the Monkey Paw episode.
Okay.
I love it as like kind of a weird like commentary on just the Simpsons fame. As it was like everyone got real sick of the Simpsons, they became really famous. Everyone like got like they had the same merchandise in their world that we had in ours. I love when they finally get to the last wish, and Homer tries to come with his foolproof wish, and it's this turkey sandwich. And he goes in like, and it doesn't come alive, and it doesn't kill people, and it doesn't do all these things. And then the bad part of it is that the turkey's a little dry, and it's like devastating to him. I love that when Flanders gets it, all the wishes he comes for like work out for the best. It's just a fun, goofy episode.
Good one.
And the other one I wanted to bring up was the Genesis tub.
Oh yeah.
Where Lisa does an experiment with her tooth and soda and accidentally, like through some static electricity, creates civilization in it. And that one's on the list. Because the sequence where they attack Bart with spaceships is so awesome and so interestingly animated and so different for the show. And then there's a little Professor Frink in there, and he makes a debigulator to shrink Lisa down into their world. And then the idea of shrinking her, like turning her back, is I have to make a de-rebigulator or whatever it would be. And like the concept of that is just so outlandish. I don't know. It's just like a fun little episode, but it's not particularly scary.
I love at the end where like she is now stuck in this tub because so basically it was supposed to be her science fair project and Bart stole it and he got the prize, which was a gift certificate. And Lisa's like down there so tiny they can't hear her yelling. Yeah. And the people, she's on her throne and the people are watching her and she's like, oh, now I just gotta live in this stupid like cup. And she's like, shouldn't you be doing something? Go get me shoes. And they all run to get her.
Oh, there's one guy in the backwards like, she wants socks, I'll get her socks.
Yeah, she'll probably want socks. I'll get her socks.
As they view her as God and Bart as the devil. Because earlier when their society was more primitive, he was sitting there like poking his thumb in it and like devastated their reality. It's just a fun episode. I really enjoy it. So those are my runners up. Overall, I think we have covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Man, I'm sure there's stuff. I know there's stuff that I like that I did not bring up, but I didn't have, when going through them, it's like you look at something like I only have so much to say about some things versus like, oh, I liked this.
I mean, like there's like definitely we were kind of talking before we started recording about how in some of the episodes, like the three segments aren't really that great, but the like opening credits kind of like make up for it. Just having like a really good opening sequence sometimes is just enough to like pull that episode through. And there's like a couple like I don't know if you've seen the one, it was like from season 24 and Guillermo del Toro
that one was so cool because it's just all references to his movie.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much they fit into like it's got to be minute tops, just like every like he pulls from like his inspirations and his movies and like his favorite horror and like just like the whole town. It's like basically the regular intro except it's as if Guillermo del Toro
it's the extended one,
It's really cool.
So you get to see all the different towns people, like it's not just them showing up to the house, which is also a cool opening where they do where like they where it's that short opening but like they all die during it.
That one is good too.
And then like it cuts to like Freddy and Jason at the couch, like they should be here by now.
So there's like so many good opening segments here. I love the one where they're the monsters and like they're getting ready and they're living their happy
the
lives.
monsters opening, and then like the townspeople go to murder them.
Townspeople come and murder them, except for Lisa, who's just like
because she's Marilyn. Which is But I love that when they do that part, like Homer does the Herman Munster like jiggling his head. I love the monsters so much. I also like a lot of the really simple ones, like where they just run up to the couch and they're skeletons, or like they all just come out of frame and they're just hung. Like that one's really kind of dark, but or the one where like Death's just at their couch and they all run up and like die at his feet, and then he puts his feet up on them. There's so much fun stuff that they can do with it, and like couch gags in general continue to be like a highlight even when the show is bad. There was a whole season recently where they did a bunch of guest animators, and like I watched all of those. I didn't watch the episodes, but all of those were really creative and interesting. Like I love the one where it's like Miami Vice. It's like Homer in the couch. It was all hyper realistic looking, and like I don't know. I kind of want to watch like a playlist of like all of those back to back.
I bet you could find it.
Oh, I'm sure it exists. I'll probably look that up on YouTube not too long after we're done recording this. But so let's talk a little bit about potentially the future. I don't know what this year's segments are. I don't think the episode aired yet.
According to Wikipedia, which we don't know how accurate it is, this year it's gonna be Toy Gory, so a parody of Toy Story, Into the Homerverse, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which I'm excited about because that's like my favorite movie. And then Be Kind Rewind, which is Be Kind Rewind, which I love that movie too.
I do, but none of those are like horror.
None of them are scary.
And I feel like Into the Homerverse, like they've already done the one where they met like the alternate versions of the Simpsons.
The Coraline one, Coralisa?
No, there's one where like they find out that there was the original model Simpsons and stuff.
Yeah,
because at the end then there's like all these alternate like animation style Simpsons at the end.
I did like that one a lot.
I did too. But other than like just seeing that, like I don't think there was much special to it.
I don't I'm not really sure like why I feel like there's so many classic ideas that they have not touched, and they kind of just like pigeonholed themselves into just like, okay, Treehouse of Horror equals movie
parodies. And
I don't understand like why that is, because I think that they come up with creative storylines all the time, all season long. Why wouldn't you just push yourself to do at least one segment that's an original idea?
There's something, I don't know.
And I wonder if it's just for ease of
well, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's pitch a Treehouse of Horror segment to each other. What would you like to see, even if it's like a movie or like a genre of horror you would like to check out?
I would love to see a lot more historical, like regional ghost story, like references. Like I would love to, like there was one episode where they did like a Sherlock Holmes, but it's in London at the time of like Jack the Ripper. I like seeing them in historical settings, and like it's almost this is like really sad to say, but it's like you can kind of learn something from it.
Well, I hope it inspires you to go to real research on
exactly.
Let's put it that way. Encourage that.
Yes, and I think that like I said before, like I love The Raven, and I love them touching on like classic horror literature and kind of like pulling from that. Like I'd love to see them do something with like an H.P. Lovecraft story, or like
well, I mean Homer did eat Cthulhu not too long ago.
That is true. But that episode was kind of lame.
Well, that wasn't even a full segment. That was just the opening bit.
That's true. And they were in like a New England, like Providence type town. So I should shut up about that, because that is true. They did hit that. But yeah, I would love to see more things that are kind of they're less trending, if you will. Like I feel like their parodies worked in the past because they were pulling from things that are hands down are timeless, right? Like even if kids have never seen Bram Stoker's Dracula, they're gonna know what Dracula is just through osmosis for the rest of like all time, I believe, right? Like if it's lasted this long and we all know what Dracula is, I'm gonna believe that in the like our future generations will also know what Dracula is, right? It's not like who's thinking about Mr. and Mrs. Smith anymore,
that's like because that's lame when they don't do like have anything to do. Like they did the Kingsman thing, was that last year? But I think that was just an excuse to just kill everybody.
Yeah, and like to be fair, I watched The Kingsman recently, and there is a whole scene that's actually really amazing. I don't know if have you seen it?
It's been a minute since I've seen it.
So there's like the scene where he's in the church, and it's like a one. I forget what they call it in film, but it's like a one sequence. Like they didn't stop it and edit it. Of
One take.
One take, killing like
Yeah.
all of the people in the church, and it's like pretty crazy. And
No,
like,
that's a really cool movie, but like, and I love Spider-Verse, but like,
yeah, but it's not. I don't want to see a Treehouse of Horror Spider-Verse. I love I would like to see like, what if it's just a normal episode of Homer?
Yeah, and it's something to point out. They have gotten kind of weird and experimental in some of their episodes. Like they did a whole one in Lego.
I did love that one. I love that one.
I didn't like their Lego designs. They looked really weird.
They did look funny, but I love the Lego movie, so I was just like really jazzed about it.
So I love that Milhouse was one of the master builders in that.
But yeah, I think that like if you're gonna pull from pop culture, you need to be very very choosy. I think like I think picking things like, you know, like I think picking The Exorcist or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, like those are good, but like why are you then gonna pick you know, like
Toy Story
or, you know, like Twilight? Like that's gonna date it. Don't pick things that are gonna date it.
Yeah, and there's something, not to say that, and Toy Story I think will be it is a timeless movie, and will stand a test of time. But I don't think it's something worth doing a Treehouse of Horror segment on. No. Who knows? Maybe it'll be amazing, and I'll have to eat my words when we watch it. But
true. I mean, you know, I think,
but they also did do a superhero episode. Remember when like desperately seeking Xena?
Yeah.
Like Bart and Lisa get like Xeroxed and become superheroes. But even as a kid, I thought that was kind of lame.
Yeah. I mean, I like that one because I love comic book guy. I love to hate him. No offense, Scott.
He hits a little too close to home sometimes.
Yeah. I imagine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that some of my favorite ones are like the historical kind of like classic. I love seeing those, and I would love to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like you mentioned like more regional kind of monsters and stuff. Like I'm also really into cryptozoology, so like I would love if they did like a Wendigo type thing, or like of course I would love a Jersey Devil one, but
that would be amazing.
Like, you know, even if they're meeting, like, I guess they sort of did Bigfoot in season 1 or 2 or whatever it was when they went camping, and Homer was like seeing his Bigfoot, but
that wasn't Treehouse of Horror.
That was a normal episode, but like, you know, I think it'd be fun, like maybe, or do like if you're going to go, because I don't want them to do like another Dracula story, or you know, because they've done like Frankenstein kind of pastiches, but like a Monster Mash one might be fun.
That would be cool. Or even like what's the it was a Hanna-Barbera show. No, what am I thinking of? I don't want to say something that's going to make me sound stupid if I'm wrong, so I'm not going to say it. But I remember one of my favorite Scooby-Doo episodes is where they go to the girls' school.
The Ghoul School.
Ghoul School, yeah. I love Ghoul School. I think that they should pull more from like classic cartoons too. Like there are some things that, like, you know, I don't know. I guess that's nostalgia talking, so maybe I shouldn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just feel like there's better things that they can be pulling their source material from.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I proposed we do this segment, and I couldn't come up with anything that I'd really want, because the things I really would want, they've kind of already done.
Like what?
Well, like a Nightmare on Elm Street one, let's be more specific, kind of pop culture. They've done a lot of the classic monsters already. Like if you like, would they do another zombie one? What are they going to do different? Just obviously make Walking Dead references, you know.
Later, so they kind of have done another one.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't really have any like slasher films other than Nightmare on Elm Street. Like
I was thinking about that. Like, there's not really like a Friday 13th.
Yeah.
Like that might be fun. Like to go back to Camp Krusty and make it focus on the kids.
God. You just wrote it.
Yeah. Well, I know they made an episode called Camp Krustier somewhere.
Isn't Sideshow Bob there?
I don't remember. I just remember that it happened.
I think that actually, I feel like that kind of might be one, but
I think that might be a Treehouse of Horror segment. Yeah. But I don't remember exactly the details.
Camp Krusty.
Camp Krusty was supposed to be a movie.
Really?
I'm like, I watched that episode. It's a fine episode, but I'm like, I don't see the story here for a whole movie.
No, but summer camp movies were really popular at the time. It was like a thing.
Yeah.
There's always a bunch of summer camp movies. But yeah, I don't know. I think like we have so many interesting pieces of lore in our culture. Like, why not celebrate that a little bit more?
I don't know. I love the 3-episode anthology, but like it might be interesting if they did one where it's like a whole episode, because then you can kind of really dig into whatever story you want to set forth. I don't know. Do you think people would riot if they changed the format like that?
I think that they played with that it was one of the more recent seasons. They did an episode. It was right before Treehouse of Horror, and it was a like a normal episode, but it was on Halloween. It was a Halloween episode, but it was a normal episode. It wasn't a Treehouse of Horror.
Oh yeah, they never do that because they do Treehouse of Horror.
Right. So they did that for one season, and I liked it. But
Yeah.
I'm also their like target audience. So but I feel like the three-story arc is so classic, and I think it gives them more. It makes them summarize it a lot quicker, which I think is good for people's attention span. But I also feel like maybe they wouldn't get so burned out so easy and like rely on these easy, like go-to kind of like lazy choices, because they're not trying to pour so much energy into making sure that they come up with 3 every time,
Yeah, and I don't mind like them doing like say something like Stranger Things, but I needed something like more than just this is that other thing, but with the Simpsons characters playing in the roles.
Exactly. Like, why wouldn't you? I mean, I just watched that one and I don't even remember really what happened. Like, like that's not good. Especially when we can sit here and talk about something we watched maybe 20 years ago and like say the words by heart,
Yeah, exactly. Like they're just, I don't know. I feel like the shows have got the ones have also gotten like, I don't want to say dumber, but they've gotten less dense. Well, there's not as much story and jokes going on at the same time.
You're like, all right.
Yeah, it just feels, I don't know. For me, the more recent stuff feels like they're just kind of going through the motions. And I get like, I can't really stop doing them at this point. But from the beginning, like they've never done them every year because they didn't do one in the first season. They started with season 2. But I don't know. I think people would be upset if they didn't, because it's become an annual October Halloween tradition for people.
True, but I also feel like people are complaining about it more than they ever have. So like, what do they have to lose? You know what I mean? Like if they just tried it once, and like I said, they did seem to kind of maybe play with that idea with that one episode, but it wasn't, it didn't have like the fantasy aspect of it that we like love about it, about Treehouse of Horror. So I would be interested to see if they kind of just like, we're like, you know what, this year we're going to do like a 30-minute Halloween special about like one story, and if you don't like it, we'll go back to the 3-story arc.
And what I meant about that is like not just tell a Halloween story, but like tell one that's out of continuity, so it can be, the characters can be in danger and
exactly. Yeah, like I want like a movie, like almost like a one shot like movie type special.
And I think that would force you to not do the parody, because you can't just do like a whole episode that's just Toy Story for some reason.
Right.
Yeah,
I think I think they need to slow down on the parodies and just try to come up with some more original ideas. It's almost like losing its charm, and that's really sad because that's like my favorite thing about the show. It's
the only time I ever come back, but it always feels like they need to do some sort of attention grabbing gimmick, because I remember it was like everywhere and they're like, Sideshow Bob's gonna kill Bart. So I was like, oh yeah, I might as well. I was like, whatever, I'll watch it. And I was like, oh, I don't even remember what else was in that episode. I just remember him killing Bart and then cloning him so he can just keep killing him forever.
I didn't remember like which. I feel like that was last.
That was like 6 years ago. That was a while ago now.
Wow.
But that was like the last one that like kind of cut through like the miasma for me.
Oh yeah, season 27.
And there
it had the Godzilla one in it.
There was a Godzilla one.
Homerzilla. You should watch it. It's not scary, but it's
I think I did watch it. I just forgot, which is crazy because I'm a big Godzilla fan.
Yeah, it is beautifully animated, that one, and they really they take the time to make the town look like a little Japanese village. It's really cute.
Yes, I do remember that. But you know what I mean? Like I don't remember that I saw that.
Yeah, and that's not good. Yeah. So
I would like to see a lot more of that.
Yeah.
I'm a history nerd, apparently.
Yeah, I think I would just, even if they're doing like an homage or a parody of something, I just want to see more of a twist on it where it's not, it's more than just that.
Mhm.
Because I remember they did one where there was like the movie Freaks, but like it kind of felt like it had nothing to say.
Is that the one where they're the church?
Where it's like sepia toned the whole time.
Yeah, and
They're
they're like
carnival, like Homer's a strong man.
Mhm.
But that's all I remember is that they did it. I don't remember what it was, like anything that happened in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it'll be good. Maybe they got their mojo back. But
maybe. I mean, I love Into the Spider-Verse, and I think it'll be fun. If they pick the right alternate versions of Homer, then it could be really hilarious.
Oh, what alternate versions of Homer would you like to see? Because I imagine they'll probably make some of them up. I don't think it's going to just be like Pie Man and
No. I hope they make new ones because
or like Homer as a mascot for the baseball team. Dancing Homer, that was his name.
A really suave, debonair, like James Bond type Homer would be cool. But he seems really smart and put together, but he's still a bumbling idiot.
00 Nut, because he's a donut. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so good, Scott.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I'd want to see. Maybe one where he's Herb Powell.
A Homer Ham, even though I know that's from.
Oh, they'll probably just mix him with Spider Pig. Yeah. Plopper. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see. The Simpsons is a show I kind of wish wouldn't have ended, if I'm honest with you.
I do think that it doesn't have a lot longer if they don't kind of like figure it out.
Well, also it's like the voice actors have aged so much. But I was thinking about like Apu in their lead up to this, and like how they had to like get rid of him because he's problematic. But if this was still a product of just the 90s, I think you could kind of write it off. Like, I don't think people would be as harsh about that. But it's because he kept showing up in the 2000s and stuff, which I understand people's problems with him.
Of course.
I do think Apu is one of the better side characters they ever had.
Yeah.
He's one of the few that was like had actual character development and would have full like he's the only one of the few that felt like a real character. It's just a shame that he had kind of a silly voice.
I kind of, well, I mean, I feel like they could have handled it in a way where they just changed the voice and like commented on the fact and kind of like played a joke on. Like
they could have played it like he's been in America for so long, like he lost more of his accent.
I feel like he doesn't have to disappear altogether.
Yeah, I think the way they handled it was not great. Like they made some stupid joke in the show about Apu not existing anymore. I'm like, I would have been better if you just didn't call him out at all. But like, he played such a pivotal role. Like he's one of the reasons Lisa's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Like I don't know.
I love Apu.
Character I miss. But now that we're bringing him up, he never shows up at any of the Halloween.
He doesn't. I was just thinking.
Yeah.
The toupee one.
Oh yes, he does get killed in the Hell to Pay is what it's called.
Hell to Pay. That's
There's
it.
Hell to Pay. Yeah. That one was one I was thinking about putting on my honorable mentions, but I was like, I don't know.
That is good.
But yeah, that's the only time I think he ever factors into any of the specials, other than maybe being a background person in like group shots and stuff.
Oh, and I think he's one of the mutants in Omega Man, but I don't think.
Oh yeah, I think he is too, but I don't think he says a whole lot. Yeah. Because I remember like Wiggum, Mr. Burns, Lenny and Carl, Mo. I remember those ones being mutants and talking.
And Skinner's one.
Skinner, yeah, too, yeah. I think Flanders was as well.
Yeah, he was. I
think he's the one that tries preaching like peace at the end and then they murder them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've talked about this goofy cartoon for like 2 hours now.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'm sure we could keep going forever. But you know, I'm going to need time to edit this and go to sleep at some point, so we'll probably cut it here. Thank you so much for joining me, Kayla.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.
I know, to let people know a little bit behind the scenes, we have been discussing a way to try to talk about The Simpsons forever on the show because it's such a massive thing that's still going. It's like, how do you do it? And then you had the ideas like, let's talk about Treehouse of Horror for Halloween. Perfect. I want to do Halloween related stuff all month. And we might come back and with other ways to chop up The Simpsons into a little more digestible bites, because we could talk about it forever and a lot of it would deteriorate into just us quoting it. And I want to try to avoid that a little bit if we can, and talk a
Yeah.
little more substantially, to show that we're not just watching the show and parodying it back. We actually think about it.
There's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
It is an intelligent show, at
Yeah.
least. At
No,
some
it is.
point.
It's intelligent, low and lowbrow at the same time.
Yes,
It's
and that's the beauty of it.
yeah, it's great. But yeah, I think that'll do us for this week. Kayla, where can they find you again?
They can find me on Instagram at Star Savior Bunny or at This Is Radio Flash.
And we have some copies of your comic, Star Savior Bunny, at the store. So you can find us at levelupentertainment.com. And from there, it's links to everything you need to see, including our social media. I don't feel like listing them all out. But my analytics show most people don't listen to the ends of the episode, so it's all good. So join us next week. I think we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th.
Ooh.
So till next time, then, be safe.